I know it's hard to believe for a lot of people, but the Commander format has been supported for over 10 years. Going back to 2011, Wizards of the Coast gave us the first Commander set, 5 3-color decks, and one of the most popular Commander options from this set is also one of the most busted, unbalanced Commanders ever created, Animar Soul of Elements. I don't want to say that Animar is the most broken Commander because we have plenty of Commanders that are just over the top powerful, but fundamentally we're going to break down the many reasons why Animar is broken. So let's just quickly review the card and what it does. We have a legendary creature in Elemental, so you have Elemental synergies, you have access to 3 colors and only 3 mana for your commander, so it's right in that sweet spot where you don't have to pay too much mana in combination with the commander tax just to replay it multiple times in the same game. Protection from white and from black. Whenever you cast a creature spell, put a +1/+1 counter on Animar, and creature spells you cast cost 1 less to cast for each of them. So if you have 5 +1/+1 counters on Animar, your creature spells are going to cost you 5 generic mana less. It won't reduce the cost of colored mana, but that's still pretty good. And with all of that upside, you have a 1/1. So let's start off with the first busted thing about Animar, the colors. This is a pure creature strategy, and I think it is because of Animar that we've associated these colors with being creature focused. This is where it all began. This is why Tamer is the way it is. It's more of a creature focus. What makes this specific color combination so ridiculously powerful with Animar is that while you are reducing the cost for your creatures, you have access to a ton of card draw engines. And even in just green back around when Animar was released, you had a massive amount of green card draw. Glimpse of Nature is maybe one of the only sorceries you would consider throwing into an Animar deck, because it's only 1 green mana and you could spend an entire turn drawing cards. While you can make creatures like Garruk's Pack Leader, Primordial Sage, Soul of the Harvest even cheaper, in addition to continuing to draw cards whenever you play creature spells. Not even mentioning the newer green card draw sources that are even better, like Selvala Heart of the Wilds, Beast Whisperer, Guardian Project, Zendikar Resurgent. We already had plenty of card draw. And you might be wondering, when does blue enter the equation? Well, blue adds a ridiculous amount more, and you can find plenty of card draw from creatures like Muldrifter, Consecrated Sphinx, Prime Speaker Zagana, Tishana Voice of Thunder. The fact that Animar is blue is not broken because you can play counter spells like people typically hate blue for. It's broken because you can get through your deck at an unbelievable rate, and this was even the case back when Animar released in 2011. Few decks could actually keep up with the speed. And my argument here against blue isn't that I think Tamer colors shouldn't have this kind of power. It's specifically that Animar shouldn't have access to blue. That Animar being blue is a reason why it is over the top. It's this combination of massive creatures that dominate the board and the speed that you're given to just go through your deck quickly with blue that doesn't really balance it out. And breaking it down even further, the next point, this is the most obvious one, the creature spells you cast cost 1 less to cast for each +1/+1 counter on Animar, making any kind of colorless creature, like artifact creatures, pretty much free to a point. You have staples like Solemn Simulacrum, and then you have more utility choices like Spellskite. You get some ridiculous power out of Wormcoil Engine as well. There is really no downside to filling your deck with a ton of colorless creatures, because in combination with the card draw engines that I showed you, you could spend an entire turn just doing nothing but playing creatures, drawing cards, and spending next to no mana to do so. And that's about it. Artifact creatures are really the only thing that you can abuse with Animar's cost reduction. Oh wait, no, I'm kidding. Because you have the Eldrazi, some of the most powerful creatures ever created, and the downside to them is that they're usually really expensive. Well, if Animar's left alone, and it's most likely going to be the case that it's left alone, because of another reason why it's busted, which we'll get to in a couple minutes, you're not spending that much to get these out there. And once you have at least a couple Eldrazi out there with Annihilator, you have all of the advantage. There's little your opponents are going to be able to do to get back into the game. And there's such a variety to what the Eldrazi are capable of. You'll get great removal from Ulamogs, you'll get good card draw from Kozileks, and you even have some shutout cards like Void Winnower. But believe it or not, that's not even the most ridiculously busted thing about Animar's cost reduction. It's the combos. The combos are incredibly easy to pull off. You could play something like Cloudstone Curio, which in combination with Animar and a couple colorless creatures is going to give you infinite +1/+1 counters, and with those card draw engines I mentioned earlier, you'll probably just win the game. You might be asking, well, once you get through your deck, how do you win? Well, Animar also gives you access to red, so you have things like Urabrask, Maelstrom Wanderer, so a lot of ways of giving your creatures haste. And Ancestral Statue is pretty much a one-card combo itself. Like once you have enough counters on Animar, you can just keep cheating Ancestral Statue into play, bouncing itself back to your hand, accomplishing pretty much the same thing. And the combos get even more ridiculous if you want to get more mana for other things. You don't need the mana, but you could use Peregrine Drake, find a way to bounce it back to your hand, replay it. Again, it's more of the same. It's just how many different combo pieces you have access to with Animar that also makes this really busted. You have Palinchron, which is another creature that combos with itself pretty much if you have the cost reduction there. All you're doing is paying 2 blue mana to play it, 4 to return it to your hand, and then every time you do that, you're netting yourself 1 mana. You also have Cloud of Fairies, which is an even easier one to get out there early on. Just the fact that you're making these cheaper is totally unfair. I mean, it breaks so many rules. But it's not even the end. Like, we have yet another reason why Animar is one of the least balanced commander options ever created. You have protection from white and from black. Everything I just told you up to this point was enough for me to consider Animar like one of the most powerful commander options ever made. Wizards of the Coast did all that, and they were like, you know what? Nah, that's not good enough. Only 3 mana, great cost reduction, can get a ton of +1/+1 counters, can threaten commander damage with that alone. Let's give this creature protection from the 2 best removal colors in the game. Oh, you don't believe me? Well, Swords to Plowshares, according to EDHREC.com, is the 3rd most played card in the format, and you can't use it on the best creature on the field that is allowing your opponent to assemble a massive board presence. Think about how ridiculous that is, that for only 3 mana you're getting a creature out there that can never be hurt by something like this. Every deck that's white or black is usually going to play some form of targeting creature removal. Path to Exile is a slightly worse Swords to Plowshares, but you also have Generous Gift, Infernal Grasp, Deadly Rollick. You have multicolors that happen to be white or black like Assassin's Trophy, Terminate, Putrefy, Mortify, Abrupt Decay, Anguished Unmaking, Bedevil, Utter End. None of these could ever touch Animar, and they see a ton of play. And because it's protection, it's not hexproof, it does a little bit more than just simply stopping your opponents from targeting it. What Atraxa, Edgar Markov, Korvold, and Prosper Tomebound all have in common, outside of the fact that they're 4 of the most played commander options in the format, is that they're all white or black, meaning that even if they wanted to, they couldn't block Animar. And not only that, if Edgar Markov or Prosper Tomebound swing at you, you can block with Animar all day. It's that added strength in combat that you're given with the protection that allows you to realistically threaten commander damage, and I mean, you often will threaten commander damage with Animar. We have a ton of commander options that are white or black. It adds to what I was saying earlier, where colors are usually balanced, color combinations are usually balanced. Only exception would be if a commander option is 5 colors, then okay, it could be over the top because you need to play 5 different colors. But with only 3 and only a 3-mana commander, there are a few downsides to playing this. To pay as little mana as possible to get through your deck, to threaten an insane amount of commander damage. The only real thing that I would say is balanced about this commander is the fact that it enters the battlefield as a 1/1. That's really it. That's the only downside to Animar that I can think of, is that it's not going to instantly dominate. It's just that if you are building the deck correctly, it's not going to take much more than a single turn to get it big enough to where you're not going to worry about little sweepers. And oh yeah, I guess it dies to removal if you play a board wipe, but when has that ever been a good argument? Again, Animar is one of the most busted, lopsided commander options. It's been like that for a long time, and I feel like people have started to forget that because of the saturation of the format. When we have a lot of really powerful 5-color commander options, it doesn't really make Animar seem as powerful anymore. But that still is very much the case. This is a ridiculously strong commander. So if you appreciate this, if you appreciate videos like these, go check out my video I did on Aloro, the rise and fall of one of the most popular commanders back in 2014. I love doing these retrospectives because as a supported format, we've been getting these products for over a decade now, and it's interesting to keep track of all the data. So thank you so much, Commander Void here signing off. I will see you all next time.